Good morning, everyone. I'm Jane Conover, the president of the York County Community Foundation, and I'm so thrilled to have you with us today for our webinar series called Together We Thrive. This is where we dig deeper into the issues facing York County. Our belief is that together we can tackle our community's toughest challenges and make real progress. YCCF's vision is that York County is united, prosperous, and growing, with opportunities for everyone to thrive. We seek to fuel community transformation through transformational philanthropy and grant making. Our Fund for York County gives us the flexibility to adapt and focus grants on the most pressing issues of the day. Currently, we are awarding grants to transformational programs and collaboratives that remove barriers to economic mobility for low-income individuals. Our goal is to help more of our neighbors thrive. Our work with nonprofits through the COVID-19 Response Fund and our support of the development of the York County Economic Action Plan taught us that more families are living on the edge than we imagined. In fact, 32% of York County households are financially insecure. That means people are living paycheck to paycheck, and they are one emergency away from a financial crisis. Research shows that dismantling barriers and connecting financially insecure people to sustainable economic opportunities is the foundation for an economy that works for everyone. In our first Together We Thrive event, just over a year ago, you heard from an expert from the Federal Reserve and a grantee that's moving individuals towards self-sufficiency. Our second webinar focused on how the lack of quality childcare prevents parents from sustaining employment. Today, you'll hear from a financial counseling expert and another YCCF grantee about barriers low-income people face and learn about tools and creative solutions to overcome those barriers. We also know we can learn from you, so please share your questions and thoughts. And thank you for all you are doing to help York County make progress. It is now my pleasure to introduce Adrian Buckner, our Vice President of Grants and Community Engagement, to share more.
Good morning, all. Thank you so much, Jane. As the leader of our grant making program, my team and I are focused on transforming lives in our community by helping people thrive, by building economic mobility for low-income individuals. Why this focus, you may ask? The pandemic made it crystal clear that more people are living on the edge than we ever imagined. In fact, a third of county households are financially insecure. That means that people are living paycheck to paycheck. And as Jane indicated, they are one issue away, one car repair, one health scare away from a financial crisis. We look to leverage our efforts with many partner organizations like YCEA and the United Way in order to create greater impact. To address this critical need, YCCF has launched the Thrive Grant Program, primarily with dollars from the Fund for York County. Grants will focus on programs and collaboratives that transform lives in our community by helping people with limited income overcome barriers. Not just plug a hole, but to holistically address the variety of needs that many families with low income face, so they can be less dependent on governmental subsidies and programs, and they're able to live a life of economic independence. Today, we want to share with you what we've learned about the barriers people face when trying to achieve economic mobility. For many, they don't even know where to start. York County's 2020 Economic Action Plan identified the need to put extra focus and attention on building pathways for residents of York County and York City to access economic opportunities. Nearly 7 in 10 City of York households earn less than a living wage. At a county level, 40% of York County households earn less than a living wage. While the county statistics are more in line with the state, 40% of households trying to survive on less than a living wage is still unacceptable. YCCF is focusing our discretionary grant making on building economic mobility for those low-income individuals. As Jane shared, the research shows that we need to bring down the barriers people face and connect them to opportunities. It's the only way we can lay a foundation for an economy that works for everyone. To be economically mobile, people need careers, not just jobs. They need paid time off, health benefits, and the opportunity to save for their future. And most people need assistance in learning the intricacies of making the right financial moves in their lives. Even if you grew up in a household that discussed things like mortgage rates or credit scores, it can be difficult to navigate the correct steps to having a good credit score or home ownership. Now, imagine not having any exposure to these kinds of discussions. Would you even know where to start? Jing reminded us of some of the work YCCF has done in the past, but I'm excited for the most recent programs we've supported and the partnerships we're leveraging to help our community thrive. Our first guest speaker is Terry Redmond. Terry serves as the Director of Counseling for the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. Terry coordinates the efforts of the agency's comprehensive homeownership counseling initiatives and foreclosure mitigation counseling initiatives. Under Terry's leadership, PHFA has been awarded more than $70 million in grant funding to expand counseling efforts throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So welcome, Terry.
Thank you, Adrian.
My pleasure.
The Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency's mission is to finance safe, decent, and affordable housing for seniors, people with disabilities, and low and moderate income families. We are considered the premier influencer of development here in the Commonwealth as we continue to push the envelope and emphasize incentives for innovation through the implementation and the unique public-private partnership that involves lenders, developers, and a network of housing counseling agencies. Our lending products are competitive, and through our lending partners, they provide access to market rate interest, down payment and closing cost assistance, and they provide an opportunity to either refinance a home or retrofit a home for someone with disabilities. Our diverse housing counseling network has been recognized for top performance, standardized services, and historically attracting the most funding nationally when compared to other housing finance agencies.
Thank you so much, Terry, for that introduction. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to having some more dialogue. At YCCF, we achieve community transformation by awarding grants to nonprofits doing the work in your county. One of those recent grantees is a grassroots nonprofit working to empower low-income individuals and former inmates by providing training and coaching workshops to improve their career prospects. Delane Simpson, CEO of BrotoGo, started the organization in 2017. Within the first year of its program, BrotoGo helped 63 ex-offenders secure stable employment with full-time positions. Delane, why not tell us a little bit about BrotoGo and how you're helping people overcome the barriers to economic mobility?
Thank you, Adrian. So again, my name is Delane Simpson. I'm the founder and CEO of BrotoGo. BrotoGo Inc. was started in 2017 with the mission statement to empower, equip, and motivate the ex-offender population. As Adrian stated, making sure that individuals not just have jobs, but have careers, a pathway to where they can have a 401k, to where they can have PTO, but also trailblazing into making sure the workforce development piece is there, the trades. Everyone doesn't go to college. So BrotoGo has made sure that we're sending people to get their HVAC certification, their forklift certification, even their serve safe, anything that they can use to utilize to better them for a better career without actually going to college. Also helping with their basic needs. So when it comes for a person coming home, needing their ID, their driver's license, their birth certificate, their social, PPE for work, steel toes, all of those things, we make sure that they have. And we've been able to successfully do that in York County, Dauphin County, and Cumberland County since 2017.
Awesome. Congratulations on your success. I know that it has not been easy, but your willingness to sacrifice and work 18 different jobs to get it done is appreciated. I'm pretty sure all of those individuals that you're helping appreciate your sacrifice. So let's get into it. I want to talk about what are the barriers and pathways, but let's just break that up and say, first of all, what are some of those economic barriers that individuals are facing every day? And, when it comes to economic mobility, and Sarah, if you want to start us off about some of those barriers that you've experienced in the counseling world.
Well, I think education around financial literacy is a major issue. Income, we're just not earning enough money. I mean, you've said it, Jane said it. And people are uncomfortable about or understanding the principles of credit and debt. You know, they just don't want to talk about their finances. I think those are some key factors that folks need to figure out. You know, the benefits of the financial literacy programs. Consumers can get an understanding of the financial concepts, how to manage their money and principles of managing money, like paying your bills on time and minimizing debt, having low credit card balances, you know, showing lenders that they can handle the debt responsibility.
So important.
Planning for emergencies. I mean, we don't have enough money to you were living paycheck to paycheck, as you mentioned. These programs really help people think about retirement and planning for retirement earlier rather than later in life, and to protect their assets.
So you talked about the education piece. Let's go a little bit deeper, because if you think about it, there was a time when growing up in school, you learned about credit. You learned about how to manage that credit. You learned about, you know, the important, even how to write a check, how to balance a checkbook. Our young people growing up, they don't get that exposure. So we have a lack of education, and I'm going to punt it over. How does that now compound with someone who's an ex-offender? So no education on top of it. Now they have to deal with the fact that they have a record.
So a good point you made was, when I was in school, they never taught us, you know, how to rate a check. They never taught us about how to watch our credit score, or even what a credit score was. You really learned that when you went to get a car and they told you, oh, your credit's not good enough, or you went to get an apartment and they're like, oh, your credit score. I'm like, but I work a job and I got a part-time job. So not being educated and being knowledgeable of that, you will fail. And, you know, this is for individuals who aren't ex-offenders. So you imagine for people that are away for 10, you know, 20 years, or even just 5 years, and you come home and you have no credit, right? Or you have bad credit.
Right.
So what ways do you rebuild that, right? You'll be in trouble. You will literally be in trouble, especially now when we're trying to get individuals just a room, you know, to come home to. The first thing landlords ask is, you know, when they fill it out, even though they could be coming through BrotoGo, that person is still financially responsible on that lease. Their name has to go on there. And I've had some landlords, you know, that are willing to work with me, but others are like, look, Delane, you know, they have no credit, their credit is bad, so we can't do it. So us not having programs to educate people on that and to give people second chances, it's horrific, because what do people do when you come home and you don't have a place to go?
Right.
Or you can't even get out of jail.
Right.
Because you don't have a place to go. And now a lot of folks can't go live with family, because either family, they're on some type of support, whether it's Section 8, you know, whether it's a apartment complex where they don't take reentrance, you know, because of your record. So what do we do when people don't know how to get their credit right? Well, how do you really get your credit right when you're just come home from jail?
Yeah, that definitely can be a struggle. When we talk about it from that financial side of being able to afford things, when you do have bad credit, what is the impact of buying a car, or even trying to buy a house or get any kind of credit? So Terry, you know, your work, what happens when that person has a relatively low credit score?
Well, they're going to pay more for everything. Okay, the interest rates are going to be higher, which means it affects their monthly payment. So if it's a car, you know, they're paying double digits in a single digit market because their interest rate's higher. Insurance looks at your credit score.
It does.
You know, and you're going to be paying more everywhere. You're going to pay more. You can't afford. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're not paying your bills on time, everything is more expensive. As simple as that. You know, and we've got to come together and figure out, you know, how to bridge this gap. You know, financial literacy programs kind of create pathways to home ownership. So people can position themselves to take advantage of the housing market. And of course, we know home ownership is the #1 generator of wealth. It strengthens communities and increases the possibility of passing on that wealth to your heirs.
And then you have additional debt if you, besides car loans, credit card debt, student loan debt, all of these things are factors. And you typically have a lot of low income individuals
Mhm.
who may have the credit issues. So the people who make the least end up paying the most
That's right.
and not realizing the fact that because no one taught me that I need to pay that credit card bill and I should not just pay that minimum payment.
That's
Right.
right.
I should be doing more
That's
than
right.
that.
That's
And I
right.
believe you mentioned it earlier, carrying that, 30% is huge. That's what creditors are looking at.
Uh-huh.
But in the absence of education, what are people doing?
They're not doing what they should be.
I mean, they're just making it. So,
They're
a lot of
that's right.
people, they don't know what to do. If you're, as Ms. Terry said, you're living payday to payday, the last thing on your mind is your credit score. If you're trying to get a vehicle, to transport your family, back and forth to school and yourself going to work, the last thing on your mind is, this high car payment. That's like, well, guess what? I need it, so I'm gonna get it either way. So to a lot of Ms. Terry's points, when people are educated properly, and I'm 34, and I can tell you, me being in high school and graduating in 2007, those things were never taught. And that was how long ago they weren't taught. But even now within our program, because we serve reentrance and at-risk youth, one thing we're teaching is the financial literacy. We're teaching kids, at a young age, hey, save your money, look at your credit score. Who knows what Credit Karma is? Because those things are important. And especially when you could do it on a phone or on your iPad, it's like, oh, okay. But they're learning it. They're getting it at a younger age. And for our reentrants coming home, and our just goes what we have every month, we talk about that. Like, how many people know what their credit score is?
Mhm.
Some do, some don't. Some, I've been away so long, they're like, well, I'm trying to go to this place to find out. Like, you can do it right online. So teaching that and making people more aware of that will set them up better. But a lot of people don't know, and that's the big failing point.
I really don't. Now we have, Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency actually funds 66 agencies across the state to provide these kinds of services. Here in York County, the Community Progress Council and Tenfold of York, PA, provides counseling, one-on-one counseling, financial literacy. So folks that are listening can access those services and they're free of charge. Also, Advantage Credit Counseling Services provides remote counseling in this area as well. So if individuals don't want to come out, they want to go to a brick and mortar, they can go online and get that service free of charge.
And that's great to know because there are folks who have transportation issues. And we know that's one of the big areas and it is a barrier for folks when it comes to transportation. So being able to access these kind of critical services remote, not having to leave, I think is awesome. Let's also talk about savings, because you had mentioned as well, Terry, about folks needing to save, and that's one of those barriers. How do you get the person who's barely making it, honestly not making it, to understand the importance of saving, or how do you get them to save?
They have to develop the habits to save. I mean, one of the challenges and barriers to receiving or even thinking about educating folks on the issues of financial literacy is that people just they're uncomfortable about talking about debt and credit and their income. They're embarrassed about sharing that information. They don't have people in their families to talk to, or perhaps the people that they're associated with are suffering from the same issues. So they don't have leaders or role models to think about that. There's all this talk about scamming, so people are hard pressed to share sensitive financial information, the social security number, driver's license. Those are all the things, pulling credit reports, they just don't want to talk about it, they could be experiencing trauma in their lives and can't think about, seeking help.
Almost like a surviving mode. They're just trying to
Yes.
survive. And it's like, I know you want me to live, but I have to get through this survival moment
Yes.
before I can understand living.
That's
And
right.
then even helping them to understand that no amount is too small to save, even if it's just $5. And really, how about just combing through that budget and saying, okay, can we cut out that extra trip,
That's right.
to
That's right.
Starbucks,
That's right.
or to some other restaurant, not to, say you shouldn't go there. But if I'm struggling, can I begin to retool my budget
Mhm.
in a way so that I have something? Because it's not a thing of, something may happen, something will happen.
Right.
A tire will need to be
Right.
replaced.
Right.
Brake pads will need to be.
Mhm.
So how do we really, and what are you doing through your programs, to help folks understand the importance of saving?
So I'm gonna back it up.
Oh,
The first thing I gotta get people to do is to even get a bank account. So many
absolutely.
people,
Yeah.
and we don't talk about this a lot, but how many people go to their check cashing place?
Yes.
Right.
Or go to Walmart
Right.
to cash their
Right.
paycheck.
Right.
And I've literally had individuals that we serve, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Blank, can you take me to the Walmart? Can you take me to the check cashing on George?" I'm like, "You don't have a bank account?"
Mhm.
And I'm like, "We gotta change that."
Yes, but that's because the banking system really has failed to educate
has.
borrowers or to not only educate, but it feels like they're working against
Right.
a working
And there's a
class.
service fee.
Yeah, and it's a service
There's a service
fee
fee.
and interest.
Right.
And so if they're not in the mindset to regularly put money
Yeah.
in this place,
Yeah.
right? And keep money there. It's a mindset,
And it
that
has
could
to be,
trained.
so mind you though, when you're coming home from prison, and the biggest struggle for a lot of these guys is, and females, is the saving piece, right? So I'm just coming home. To your point, your mindset has to change to say, you
Yes.
know what? I tell people, I don't care if you put $5
Yes.
Mhm.
out of your check bi-weekly or every week when you get paid.
Yep.
Guess what? It's a $5 that you'll have in the future. Because to your point, Adrian, it will happen. Life will happen. An emergency
Yes.
will happen.
Mhm.
I don't care if it's, your kid needs medicine and insurance is only covering so much. Because guess what? That happens.
Yes.
It's preparing for that, but really teaching them, like,
Yes.
okay, finding a bank. So for us, we work in Dauphin County, and a few of my folks down here have it, but we utilize Mid-Penn Bank, where
Mhm.
they give free banking, right? They give them
Mhm.
$20, and they know if I'm coming, that means I am reentry. These folks that I'm giving you, they need help. I don't need you to penalize them for everything. Oh, they had an overdraft. Here's a $5 fee. And to your point, Miss Terry, that's why a lot of people are like, nah, I'm just going to the check cash
Yep.
and I'll
Mhm.
pay
Mhm.
that $10 fee
That's
for
right.
my check to get cash. That way I know I have my money.
Mhm.
But when we look at the credit piece, when we look at the first time homeowners piece, you have no bank statement to show. You have no credit score. You have
Right.
nothing impacting showing. And as I said to y'all last week, I'm young. It took for me to get to my 30s to say, wow, your credit is really serious.
Yes.
That's right.
When you're younger, do you really care? Not really. It wasn't for me,
But you're not
but
taught to care.
That's
right.
right.
You're not taught
That's
the
right.
importance.
But when you're in school and you're learning about everything else but
But that.
banking,
That's right.
but your credit score, it's kind of when you get older and you keep on kind of feeling embarrassed, Miss Terry, what you say is
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
You feel like, well, I don't want to sit there and talk about because your credit score. You see people talk about, oh, my credit score, this,
Yeah.
that. Well, your credit score ain't that, you ain't talking about it.
Yeah.
So now you're at the place where, okay, let me start taking this seriously. And that's what we're teaching so many of the reentrants coming from York County Prison, coming from upstate, coming from the feds, is that guess what? You have to make this a priority because guess
right.
what? It's going to help you
That's
more
right.
than it hurt you,
Mhm.
especially when you want to make it.
So let's talk about something you just mentioned, like Mid-Penn Bank. Let's talk about collaboration. Let's talk about the fact that we say growing up, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
But guess what? Folks that are in need, they need a village. Let's
Yes.
talk about that village.
Yes.
Let's talk about those support systems that you've put in place to help folks become successful.
So what we call is a goal plan. So we look at when a person is coming home, What plans can we set them up with, right? Can BrotoGo do it all? No, because BrotoGo's, again, we're not a bank, right? But we have a bank, right? BrotoGo, we don't deal with homeowning, right? But we have a resource that does, right? So we set all of it up to say, okay, this is your resources, right? We can take care of the one-on-one mentoring, right? The mentor is the person that follows up with the individual to say, hey, this month, right? Let's goal set. This month, let's get a career, not just a job, something that has a 401k, something that has benefits that you can plug into when you need to, right? That's your 30-day goal. Your next goal is, okay, we got that. Let's now look into, okay, saving money, right? It is the goal set plan. That's why we call it our goal plan, to make sure all the resources we give an individual that they can live up to, because we can't give goals that aren't attainable, right?
Right.
So you got some people talking about, oh, in 6 months, I'm going to get, this brand new car. I don't need you to get a brand new car. I just need you to get a car, right? Make your payments. It doesn't have to be a Cadillac or a Mercedes. Get something that you can afford. But guess what else it's doing? It's reflecting your credit score. So it's helping you. And those are the things that we talk about all the time, because a lot of these guys and these females that come home, they want to make it. They want to thrive. But guess what? It's hard to do when you have limited resources. What can I say different from the 2023 era to even 2017 for reentry? The support system has changed in a big way. You do have resources like YCCF that are saying, hey, here are funds to support this, right? Where you guys have supported us full-heartedly when it has come to the not just second chance, because folks need more than a second chance. A lot of folks is on our 4th and 5th chance, but it's that one chance that they take or that they get that makes a difference. So when we have resources like your organization, like Mid-Penn Bank, like the housing component that says, okay, what can we do to help individuals have an opportunity to own their home? What can we do to make sure individuals, they just don't have a job, but they have a career that they can retire from, that they're not out for 3 months and, oh, it didn't work out and you left. And they're right back to square one, because that's when the recidivism rate changes, right? When people go back to jail, because guess what? You got to provide for your family. So when these resources are out there and they're attainable, right? And I'm able to say, hey, Miss Terry, I got an individual that is going to do the first time homeowners class. What do you have? I have an individual that needs help on their credit score, and it's all free. That gives the person hope.
Oh, hope. Let's talk about hope, Terry.
So,
how does that?
so I want to piggyback though off of the village piece that you were talking about. It takes a village. So I was digging around and trying to identify or define economic mobility. I told you when we talked and prepped for this presentation, I really love the term economic mobility. There was a professor at Harvard that did a study on economic mobility. And, he talked about, the variations of where people live and geography, and I'm not going to get into that. But the focus was, how do we get folks from the bottom realm, 20% to the top 20%? How do we move them through? And these are the things that came up. There were 5 characteristics that were found to provide greater mobility in children. Less segregation, less income inequality, better schools, greater social capital. That would mean networks and organizations kind of working together like we're doing today, and more stable families. So you can't really talk about economic mobility without talking about all those factors, right? That all of us, the folks watching, people in the panel, other foundations and philanthropic organizations, we've all, for years, we've been working on those 3 things. Those 5 categories. But it takes a village to kind of work it out together. Okay, focusing on one thing is not going to move the realm.
Right.
So when you talk about living wage and versus minimum wage, you have to get some perspective on things.
Well, for us, when we have individuals that come out from prison and they're making more than minimum wage, you're like, what? But
it's still not enough. It takes about in York, $19 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment,
Right,
okay?
right,
Versus the minimum wage being what, 7.25?
Yes.
right,
You know, I mean, so you really have to talk about income and providing a living wage above 45,000 a year.
right. Well,
Okay.
even with that though, I believe that, and I was taught this as a young person, my grandpa used to say all the time, you got 2, you got 3, you got 4 jobs. But if you don't know what to do with the money that you're receiving from those jobs,
I said all
it
the
doesn't
time.
matter.
I'm with you.
It doesn't matter.
I said all the time, I would tell folks, I'll say, if you were bad with a little bit of money, you're gonna be bad.
That's
with a lot
right.
of money.
And that's been
Because
me.
money is personal assessment. Money isn't the
Yeah.
issue. The mindset,
Right.
And how
The
you
mindset,
value
that's
it,
right.
and
Right.
how you understand it,
That's
and
right.
the power that you realize it has.
That's
is
right.
what makes the difference.
Right.
That's right.
And that's where the village piece comes in though, right?
That's
So
right.
for us, you have individuals coming home where people, some people will say, oh, your safety net is your parents. That's not always, some people say it's your friends or it's your spouse or your partner. No, a lot of times it's not, which is why BrotoGo has made it a priority to stand behind the mentoring piece, right? Because
Mhm.
everyone needs a mentor.
That's right.
I have a mentor,
right.
I'm
I
pretty
have a
sure you have a
mentor.
mentor, you have a
Yes.
mentor. Everyone needs someone they can talk to, they can vent to, and they can get some type of guidance from, right? That is kind of biased to say, look, you're doing wrong. This is
Mhm.
what you should be doing, right? You got to change your mindset. So with our number one component being the mentoring piece, and we let everything else flow from there, it has worked in a huge way because we have individuals that are literally saying like, look, Mr. Delane, I know my boyfriend or girlfriend's not telling me what's right. I need to get a house, I need to get a better job, I need to work on these things because guess what? I'm tired of living payday to payday. I'm
Mhm.
tired of living. I have 4 kids and I'm in a 2-bedroom apartment because to Ms. Terry's point, that's all I can afford
Right.
because the economy right now, you're looking at 2 bedrooms for like $1,200 a month.
Mhm.
Imagine, what a 4-bedroom would be because you're renting. They
Right.
don't own it. And that's the piece we got to educate people on is that guess what? It's okay to own, because these are the resources. Are we in a better place now? I say it all the time with resources. Absolutely.
Yes.
If you look at us in 2023, go back 10 years, the resources that we have now, the funding pieces we have now to serve reentry, we never had before. But here we are now. So we got to take use to that and not make excuses and go after it. Because you said Harvard, right? The
Yes.
professor, I say Oprah. Oprah says, when you know better, you do better.
You do better.
That's it.
So let's talk about, not just on the funding side, because I know, again, YCCF was a funder, I believe Powder Mill,
Wareheim.
Supporter Wareheim, all supporters. And that's really us as funders trying to come together to understand the issues and be a part of that village. But let's also talk about some of the employer contracts you have, because it goes even further than just you having grant dollars and being able to provide folks with driver's license and those kinds of assistance. But what about those employers who are saying, I want to be a part of this movement because I want to give them a second chance. I see the value in doing that,
Right.
or a third or a fourth chance.
So we've been able to be successful with places like Giant Food Stores, Feezer Foods, and making sure that when individuals come home, that they just don't have a job, they have a career. And I've literally been able to walk many males and females, this year alone in our 2022, we went from 63 last year to about over 120 this year to walk people into careers, right? Where they're making over 22 an hour, right? And that's what paid time off, that's what 401k. And guess what? Majority of them are still there. Why? Because it's not a job, it's a career. It's one of those things where guess what? We're going on vacation. I want to take off, but I can't afford to take off, right? But now I have this career. The career, because your mindset changes too. And when your mind changes to know, I'm just not going to McDonald's, I'm just not going to this temp job, but I'm actually going to a place that guess what? I'm building up my time, right? So I want to go to Ocean City this summer with my family. There's a week that I've been approved for, and guess what? I'm getting paid. What does that do for an individual who never had that opportunity before? That now where we have employees that are saying, okay, we recognize that these charges, they're a lot. You just did 5 to 10 in jail, but guess what? We're going to give you this chance, right? And my goal for BrotoGo is we give a person all the resources, right? So we make it to where if you need transportation, We'll validate not just a bus pass, but a Uber voucher.
Right.
Because it's 2023, a lot of jobs are second and third shift.
Yes.
The bus doesn't run
Yeah.
on second and third shift.
Very
This
important.
isn't New York or Maryland, so we have to sit there and give them the tools to make it, where the transportation is being provided. I need steel toes. That could be $40 to $50. We're taking care of that, whatever we can do, even with rental assistance. This year alone, we've been able to sit there and do a first month's rental. So if a person, as long as they're doing their piece, because they got to do their part too, meeting with their mentor, coming to the monthly just goals,
Accountability.
the accountability piece and the showing up piece. Could I tell many individuals on our program, we can do our part, but when are you going to show up for you?
That's it.
You got to show up for you. Not just for you, but you got to show up for your kids, right? Because a lot of folks that are coming home, they're rebuilding. And it's not just the males, it's many females that we serve in a lot of these halfway houses down here that are like, my parents are raising my kids. I got to make this up because I've been away. And I'm not worried about making it up to my parents, but my kids deserve better. So what resources are we giving these individuals to make a better life, just not for them, but for their families as well?
Right. So I always say, you can't credit and budget people to death with education. You've got to show them how to work the system. You have to usher them in to employment opportunities so they can increase their income. They can get benefits,
Right.
like you're just saying, and they can have and improve a better quality of life.
Right.
I did some research in this area, and there's a number of employers. You mentioned Giant Food,
Giant
right?
Foods.
So but there's York Hospital, there's Wellspan, there's Walmart, Harley Davidson, programs that kind of usher people into those jobs, similar to what you were saying,
Right.
is an important aspect. Perhaps working together with employers so that a counseling agency can come in and maybe provide that learning that we talked about that people want to avoid, so they can understand how to improve their finances and encourage them.
Right.
Programs that provide mentorship opportunities, coaching opportunities, okay, so that they can be encouraged about and have more confidence,
Right.
to do well on their job. There are employer assistance programs that will match dollars for savings.
Like the federal government.
Exactly.
And I see you had that, and I don't know how I can forget that. So, outside of BrotoGo, serve as the president for the American Federation of Government Employees. And one of my biggest goals have been, since I've been president last May, is to increase the visibility to the community, to let people know that you can have a background and still be a federal employee. And some people are like, huh? Yeah, because different clearances. Now, you may not be eligible for a secret clearance or a critical clearance, but you could go in on a modern clearance, right? That gives you access. And guess what? That starting rate is still $26, $27 an hour.
Wow, that's
Full
phenomenal.
benefits.
It is phenomenal.
But how many people don't know that because they see the word federal and it's like, oh, I know, I just came home, but you can.
And,
Right.
and their mindset has been, because I have this
Right.
record, I can't do anything.
Right.
I think that's where it's important for that education piece and to give
Yes.
people hope.
Right.
And most importantly, I think what we're talking about here is providing that pathway forward.
Right.
Yes.
I think sometimes people lose hope
Mhm.
because they can't see a path forward
They
for
can't.
them.
They can't.
You know,
And it's easy to lose hope.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
can
hard.
imagine. Yes.
It's easy to lose hope, especially you imagine. I seen some. I got a call the other day from a gentleman in York County. He's coming home. Literally said, I have nothing. I'm not from here. Catch this. I'm not from here, but I have to stay here because I'm on supervision. I'm on probation in York County. So I have to stay here, right? I'm due to get out this spring, but I can't get out because I don't have an address, right? He's in jail. He doesn't have any money. So now my team, we have to work on a plan. What can we do to establish some type of foundation for him to come home to? Because he needs an address.
That's right.
So you can't even come home till you have an address, right? Then once he comes home, what do we do? He's going to need clothes, right?
Yes.
a lot of people, they go in jail in one season, they come out in another,
Right.
people that's been in jail for, more than 6 months or a year, they have grown,
Yes.
they have lost weight or gained weight.
Yeah.
But what are we doing to set up everything so they have some type of foundation? So
Mhm.
when they come home, they don't go back to selling drugs. They
Right.
don't go back to being on drugs, right?
Mhm.
Because that's a big thing, because when you come home and you feel like you have nothing, because your reality is you don't,
Right.
you will relapse. And it
Right.
doesn't take much to do it. I see folks every day come out with no support system, or they thought the support system they had is actually the support that's trying to push them back
Right.
into what got them into jail.
Right.
So here we are, taking the midnight phone calls, and we have reentry is not 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. Reentry is Monday through Sunday. It is 7 days a week. It is the 2 o'clock phone calls like, look, I don't know what to do. I'm ready to use again. I'm ready to go sell again. I don't know what to do. It's, hold on, I'm on my way. Because again, people don't want to be hopeless. So I call BrotoGo really the hope dealer, because that's what we have to be. We got to give people hope.
Yeah.
We got to give people a reason to say, guess
Yeah.
what? You can make it. These are the resources. You can call me. So for us, it's about being there when no one else wants to be there.
Mhm.
So I have a couple of questions that have come in from those who are watching. So Tara, I'll get the first question to you. The question is, can PHFA fund any kind of programs, financial type education programs? Since a lot of school districts
I know.
don't.
I
Is
know.
that an area by legislation or even permitted to spend dollars? What does that look like?
So we're working now in the colleges. The HUD has provided funding to housing counseling agencies to kind of set up a partnership with HBCUs
Okay.
to really help market the services for housing counseling, and provide that education, financial education. So people, when they come out of school, of course, the debt is about $40,000 on average for a student, to start thinking about how to save, how to prepare for the future, and home ownership. And if we don't do that, the millennials, are our future, right? And we have to get to them and kind of educate them. So we haven't gotten to the schools yet, but I can assure you that there are pilots in schools everywhere where, factions have gotten through the maze of bureaucracy,
Right.
and convinced superintendents, to provide this opportunity for kids in schools. But it's a hard nut to crack universally, because education is so local.
Yes, and a lot of it now is really focuses on PSSA and standardized testing. A lot of curriculum is built around that, and not so much, to what many would say around your everyday needs.
Right.
Like, I need to understand how to handle my finances. So there seems to be some awareness on the federal government level that these things aren't happening K through 12.
Right.
So at least at the next point, which is great for those who decide to go to college.
Mhm.
But if you don't, we have that
What if
population
you
that
don't?
might want to do a trade or just want to go right into the workforce. So I guess our work still is cut out for us to understand some different ways in which we can reach those who aren't going to be
Because many,
college bound.
the reality is, and this is not the slate education, because I didn't go to college. I didn't want to go to college. I did, theology at Lancaster Bible College, got a certificate in that, but I didn't want to go the long route. But I've been employed for the federal government for 15 years. I started a successful nonprofit, but it didn't take for me to go to school, right? But to Ms. Terry's point, what about it not being in the school and you don't go to college? What happens?
If we don't bring it to them,
that's right.
If we don't look to ways to connect the dots, I mean, PHFA is working now trying to build an asset building initiative, which is based off of a HUD program, historically HUD funded program, which is called Family Self-Sufficiency Program. And we're trying to model this so that we would have individuals that live in our affordable housing units can get services bought in to help encourage them, and to also provide an incentive to save, an incentive to get a certification.
Right.
Okay,
That's great.
government programs provide the basic needs, but we can fill the gap
Right.
by attracting funding and help bring in case management services in a traditional sense, where you're actually providing a roadmap to upward mobility. Okay, dealing with some of the shortcomings of the system itself. Okay, and taking into consideration of the factors that help people move forward financially. I mean, and thinking about, you know, the real issues that individuals have. So if it's employment, we try to provide that. And some of these traditional programs need to provide some incentives.
Yeah.
Okay, people need to understand when you say, how do you get somebody to think about getting a bank account and put money in it when every dime they need,
Right.
you know,
It's the real thing.
Everything is already spoken.
it's already spoken for.
Your check is already gone before you even got your check.
But if you design programs that encourage the savings,
Right.
matching it in some way, and philanthropic organizations can meet those
Right.
needs that government isn't willing to fund
Right.
for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Okay, they're doing their job, but we have to do ours to kind of help connect those dots.
See, that's what we need to do. And I encourage those who are listening, please send us some questions. We're enjoying our conversation. Please be a part of it. So I have another question. This one really comes about technology. So the question is, are there any programs that instruct people on leveraging technology to help them manage their finances? So I do know that, you know, there's a lot of apps and things out there. I do know there were some programs, you know, a few years ago that PHFA was creating, you know, trying to build your financial house, you know, different kind of tools like that. So do we have those type of technology related tools to help people really to understand their finances, track budgets and stuff like that?
Yes, I mean, you can go and Google and get some assistance. I mean, the technology is free and it's there for people to tap into. There's apps that help you manage your money better. I'm not in the weeds, so you know I can't address specifically those types of programs, but I fund agencies that do have those knowledge and expertise to be able to help individuals get through the maze and decide what they want to do. The housing counseling is just so important, and one of the challenges is that people just don't know that we exist.
And
That
housing
services
isn't just
exist.
about buying a house. It's about those who are renters.
Renters
those
as
who may be dealing
well.
with
Yes.
default with
Yes.
mortgage, foreclosure
Yes.
mitigation.
Yes.
It's the whole soup, nuts, bolts, everything.
That's right.
You know,
That's
not
right.
just one dimension. People often think about how to go there because I want to buy a house, but they can really help you understand your finances and build a plan.
Let's think about it. I mean, most of the subsidy programs, most of the programs that get funded through the folks that are listening, they have a financial need. The individuals that are benefactors of most of these programs have a financial need. Housing is a very important part of dealing with life on life terms. You know, I mean, it's essential with COVID being prevalent, you know, and us working, you know, in our homes, whether we own it or rent it, it's an important factor. And the network of housing counseling agencies can be a phenomenal resource to help connect the dots. And even with those apps and technology that might be free, you know, people need to be encouraged. People need to be directed. You know, there's no substitute for individuals saying, yes, you can.
Right.
This is where to go to get help. This is what you need to do. Identifying credible resources that have financial benefit or even debt relief.
Yes.
You know, and it's huge. You know, if I can get help here, then I can pay off this debt here.
Right.
You know, we've got to be in the center of that. And I think organizations need to think more about this whole case management structure. I think the reentry opportunity. I think that's a model
Yeah,
for other programs to consider when they're trying to establish and help people, because it's just not one thing that you need to focus on. It's a variety of things.
And then how do we understand what those needs are and who provides them? Because that's what helps us to build that village, to build those supports. I think a lot of times people get lost in the system, they get lost in the process.
and they get tired.
Yeah, and they get tired. I gotta call this one.
They get tired.
And I don't know who this person or what does. How do we really start being that connector?
Well, my thing is, and I get this all the time from people when I get it, you look at the day, right? So you have to go to work, whether you work first shift or second shift, okay? You get off of work, you have kids, right?
Okay.
Where do you have time to really jump into these resources?
That's right. That's right.
So one thing we did last year through one of our grants is I said, you know what? We have to get computers. Okay. We have to have, when people come in here,
Yes.
they can, guess what? Get on these computers, because you can do more. Thank God for technology with your computer right in front of you.
Yes.
Rather than getting a bus downtown, going out east to, this office place, going out west, you could do it right there. And what I like is, the organizations that do provide the fillable forms right online that you can do, to where, guess what? You can do it at 10 o'clock at night when you get off, having access to that, you feel me? It makes a difference, because time is everything. And there's so many people that want to make it, that, who doesn't want a better job?
That's right.
Who doesn't want to own a house, and know that there's resources to where, guess what? There's a safety net for if your roof, needs fixed, if your hot water heater goes out, but you don't have the time.
That's right.
Time is everything. And I think when the resources come as one thing I said in BrotoGo the whole time is, we can't do everything and we won't do everything, but we will find the resources and we will sit there and pull them in and say, oh, okay, this is what you need. I'm gonna send you to Miss Terry, because she has all the information on that,
Because that's what people are in need of, that kind of stuff.
They are.
They need somebody to say, and not so much people looking for a handout,
right?
They're looking for a hand up. They need help. Like I want to do the best I can. I just don't know where to start. So as we, look to answer a couple of more questions as time is winding down, it's been a great conversation. How do you define success, and how can more funding help you in that area of being successful?
Oh, that's easy for me. When I'm able to serve a reentrant that is coming home, with a job, with the resources to make it on the job, with, providing, the rental assistance for them, and they're able to complete our 6-month program, and say, look, I've done all of this, and now I'm coming back because I want to help someone along the way. I'm not just, passing the torch, I'm passing it, but when I'm passing the torch, I'm making sure it's still lit. That is success to me. Passing the torch and making sure it's still lit for that other person, because I tell people all the time, you may not have a criminal record, right? But somebody, whether it's a family member, whether it's a church member, has been impacted and has had a chance. Everyone needs a chance. And I never like to use the word second, because as I said, some people are on their 4th, 5th, 6th chance, but guess what? It was that one chance that made a difference. So success for me is passing the torch, making sure it's lit, but making sure that the resources were provided.
That's powerful, because a torch could be passed, but the flame could be out.
But to your second,
how do I make sure I pass that torch and it's lit? And how does funding help with all of that?
Let me tell you, the funding piece, people say, well, you should be able to do this, you should be able to do that. We should be able to, but the funding. So when it has come to YCCF, when it has come to Powder Mill, when it has come to Wareheim, and the Rice Foundation, that's the I was trying to think of the whole time, for them to be able to support us down here, it has been great, because we have been able to see people succeed. We've been able to see people, stay at a job for over a year or two. We've been able to see people maintain, their apartment. And we literally have 4 individuals now who they're on their 2nd year with the start of us and staying in their apartments with their families. The success stories from the funding piece, it's a huge impact, because we can't do it without you. Can't do it without you. So to everyone that has supported BrotoGo, that has given to BrotoGo. I greatly appreciate it because I can't do it alone. And when I started BrotoGo, I started out of my own pocket. For 2 years, we started in 2017.
Wow.
I did not receive my first successful grant until about 2019, going into 2020. But I believed in the work of reentry. I believed in people having another chance and opportunity to get it right. I took it out of my own pocket. So one time I was my own funder. So thank you to everyone who has believed in us this far, because it's appreciated.
And the work that, YCCF is doing, similar to the kind of work that the United Way down here in York is doing, they set a bold goal of really trying to move individuals, who are the ALICE population, asset limited income constrained employed, trying to move them forward because they're still in poverty. These are people who might be living on those, those emergency kinds of, and I don't know if you've ever seen those survival budgets.
Right.
I mean, but it's like, it doesn't seem like some of your basic needs are being met. It's like your very basic of basic needs. So a lot of the work that the United Way is looking to do to really move things forward, because we do recognize that there are a lot of folks who are in poverty.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who have desires, who have hope, but for some reason they can't find their way forward. And I believe that's where this work becomes very important. Another question, looking at it from asking, does BrotoGo share their stories in schools, to reinforce
We
the
do.
message of not only looking out from the financial education, but even saying, there's a different path that you can take for your life to, turn out a different way, potentially.
Yeah. So we started in 2017. 2 years into it, our board president, he's still our current president, Mr. Brandon Flood, came to me and said, we have talked about reentry and we're doing great at that. But let's talk about never having kids go through reentry. So we've been able to link within the York City School District. And we did a program led 2 years ago at Good Elementary and with our friends at Lincoln Charter School. And we call it our BrotoGo Junior program. And we literally went in, we talked about anti-bullying. If you go on our website, I came up with our mascot, and his name is Brody the traffic light. And I said, we got to use something to talk to these kids about the issues, right? No one wants to talk about drugs, but it's real. Nobody wants to talk about gun violence, but it's real.
Right.
Nobody wants to talk about safe sex, but it's real. So we had to go in there and talk. And when we went into Good 2 years ago, literally had a kid come up to us because we talked about domestic violence. And a kid came up to us and he said, remember that part? We did a skit and we reacted it out. And he said, remember the part where the dad was, beating on the lady? He said, that was my dad. Wow. He said, he doesn't do it no more, but that was my dad. And the little boy was in tears. And if I ever had to question, should we do this BrotoGo Junior program? Because it was still new. I knew from that day that this is what we should do.
And those are
Because-
the powerful things.
Yes,
Right.
because you're actually changing a narrative.
That's right.
People are suffering in silence. And we really need to let them provide them with hope and telling a story that doesn't end with someone going to prison.
Right.
Okay. Even though they're angry, they're living under stress.
Right.
They can't concentrate.
Right.
I mean, there's so many traumas that we all deal with.
Right.
But we have support to
Right.
be able to get through that.
I mean, even in the
Okay.
reentry thing, you got parents that are coming home. Has anyone ever recognized how the kid is impacted?
Yes.
See, and these
Yes.
They're impacted.
these are the questions that we have to ask. And what has happened for us is we have unfortunately run out of time.
I know we can go for all
Part about it. So, to those who are listening, we're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up, but we're going to stay on. So those who need to jump off at 10, you might have meetings, other obligations. That's great. We do have a few other questions we want to get through. But I just want to say thank you all for being a part of this wonderful conversation. If you'd like to stay for an extended question and Q&A, please do so. If not, the information will be emailed out. And at YCCF, we will continue to learn more about the challenges facing our neighborhoods and those who struggle to become economically mobile. We want to help folks thrive. Financial education coupled with support people need to get and stay on their career path.
Yes.
Those are critical components. And you heard that today. We are committed to leveraging our grant making to fuel community transformation. One thing I'll say as we wrap up, we can do a lot of things individually, but it's when we come together is when we thrive.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being a part of this, and we look forward to welcoming you to our next Together We Thrive series. Have a good day. So folks will begin to jump off and all of that, and we'll go into our I guess, round two of,
This is like Oprah after the show.
Yeah. So just have a few other questions that have come through. So someone had asked about some local banking stuff. We had a question regarding, let's talk about that. The local banking institutions in York, like People's Bank and White Rose Credit Union, have educational programs from elementary school level up, and they're free. How can we get York City school system to make this an integral part of the education again? So what are those things we have to happen, on that side? And again, this might be.
So as currently, in the world, I was watching GMA this morning about teachers and, educators being underpaid. So where BrotoGo comes in is we connect with these resources, as we're currently working on that right now, because again, one thing these kids like is money.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we can go in these schools and talk about that, about how, guess what, making the right decisions in your behavior, right? You could be a banker, you could be a stockbroker, all of those things, right? We can pull in. So in our next 2023, 2024 year, we're looking to collaborate with these banks to say, hey, what resources can you give us? And hey, can we start doing assemblies? I graduated in 2007. I grew up in the assembly mode, right? And okay, rather it was a bank coming in, rather it was McGruff, the crime dog coming in, things to bring awareness, and again, it goes back to hope, even to give kids hope, because a lot of kids are living in, these Alice communities to where, guess what? Going out to eat for a lot of these kids is huge. Going to, we took a bus of York City kids to the Washington, D.C. African American Museum.
Yes, awesome.
That was huge, they'd never seen that, so to change the narrative, to change their mindset of what else could be after that is huge. So to the financial piece, it's forthcoming. We're collaborating now because kids like money.
Yeah. And it goes towards the savings piece. So you're introducing a bank that's user friendly.
Right.
Credit unions typically charge less fees. It gives a person an opportunity to understand. I know I was I was a bank officer in the first grade, and my job was to collect the dollars because we were only putting $1 in. That bank, the bank that came in was a PSFS bank, and they went out of business, but whoever bought them, I still had those accounts.
Wow.
And every time, it taught me that every little bit counts. So if you start at an early age, you develop the muscle memory,
right?
Okay, to understand it. I have a relationship here,
right?
And then when it was time for me to go someplace, and my mother said no, I had money in the bank,
right?
Because I had been participating in that program for 4 years. So I mean, that's how you connect the dots. I think you have to kind of break in with the superintendent of the school.
And I think something else is already happening. And I don't know how familiar you are with junior achievement. Now, I have been a part of that,
I've heard that in a long time.
A few years back, I went into the school and I went into my son's class actually, was teaching them business. About business, and they have a curriculum and all different tools and workshops and things of that nature. But I think that might be another way in which we can keep trying to say, can we push that needle forward with the junior achievement, because they're already in the schools.
Right.
Again, I would love to see the curriculum come back. I would love to see that Business 101 come back, and things like home ec and stuff, the basis on how to live and survive and take care of yourself, but I think that's another great program that does provide that financial education. So another question has come in, and Terry, this one will be, for you. How has the spike of housing prices over the past 3 years impacted the ability of those lower income individuals to afford to buy? even rent at this point.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. What, if anything, can be done to overcome this new affordability barrier?
Well, I think practitioners need to think about creatively about stimulating opportunities to fund housing, to keep the housing price low,
Mhm.
So that you can appreciate, builders can build in low income neighborhoods.
Mhm.
Okay, but philanthropic organizations would have to take time to fund those projects, so that if the house in the neighborhood is $200,000, but out of reach to 50% of the population, and you determine that maybe bringing the price down half that, somebody has to fill
They gotta
that
cover
gap.
that difference.
Yeah,
That's
there's a
right.
gap. Right.
As the seller,
That's
I'm
what I was
not
about to
giving you
say.
those for
That's
100,000.
right.
So
Yeah.
if somebody else wants to cut a check, I might
That's
be
right.
willing to have
That's
that
right.
conversation.
So that the individual or families can get into those houses
Right.
at a cheaper rate, but it doesn't affect the appreciation. How about
Which is the
that?
most important part.
Yeah.
And we're realizing, of course, as both Terry and I are licensed real estate agents, so we definitely see the impact of this. If you go back just a year and a half, 2 years ago, when rates were in the 2s and 3s, a whole lot of people who would have not been able to buy were able to buy.
Right.
But now, since those rates have doubled,
Right.
many of those folks have now been pushed out of the market.
That's right. That's right.
And again, I'm dealing with it,
That's right.
just from 1 week to the next. I have, clients whose the amount they're pre-approved for is dropping,
Right.
because the interest rate is going up. So
Right.
then what happens? Either they decide not to buy
Mm-hmm.
and they continue to rent, or if they do decide to buy, now they have to buy in an area that was not ideal for them
Right.
before.
Right.
Thankfully, we do have programs through PHFA, that, they can get a loan through PHFA. When the good thing is, they're your servicer forever.
Right.
Okay.
Plus closing costs.
That's right.
They have closing
right.
cost programs
That's
to
right.
help,
That's right. That's
lower
right.
income individuals to be able to get into those homes.
Right.
Full
Yeah.
disclosure, I used to work at PHFA, and Terry's my supervisor.
I think we got that.
So, let's forget about what happens there at PHFA.
No, so to your
Yeah.
point, I'm gonna take a lot of what you said, back for our program,
Okay.
because again, there's so many people, I believe, that want to own their home,
They do.
but they're scared. In our conversation even last week, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that. I'm a millennial. So now with me knowing that and me now having a resource, I could take that back and say, hey, let's get you guys in, one day to talk to, our adults, who are coming home,
Right.
who are now jumping into careers where they
Right.
do have a job, where they are going to have stable bank statements and a W-2, rather than, oh, you didn't work for 6 months. So having that, but now having a resource to plug into that.
That's right. That's right.
It's the resource piece for me.
It really is. And going to a housing counseling agency helps people understand and plan out these things when it comes to a higher interest rates. A lot of the programs have increased the amounts contributing to a down payment and closing cost assistance. The federal government is relaxing the mortgage insurance premium to make it affordable.
Right.
I was just listening to the news. They're talking about eliminating $40,000 worth of student loan debt to ease the burden.
Yeah.
Okay, but you have to have that information and communication,
Right.
and you need a coach.
Right.
To someone to encourage you. I mean, many times people are saying, I'm not going to buy a house now because the interest rates are too high. You can't afford not to,
Right.
Even in this market, but you have to know where to go to get that kind of information
Right.
and that kind of encouragement. And like Adrian said, if you go, you might choose, you might not be able to go in the neighborhood you wanted to go into because the interest rates are high, but you can start. And understanding equity.
Yes.
And how you can build equity.
Some generational wealth.
And appreciation,
Right.
that's set in. As soon as you purchase that property, we have programs for home preservation. The federal government has programs for home preservation. Philanthropic organizations are putting more money to provide opportunities for people to get into these homes that may need some work and to fix up.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay. But those are scary things.
It is, which is
You
why
know?
a lot of people don't want to buy.
That's right. But you need to
don't
have,
know,
they don't know,
right?
you need to have the proper advice.
That probably leads into our next question that was asked, because the question comes and says, many think that marginalized groups don't have access to credit. A lot of times, they feel that way.
Right.
They won't ever give me anything. I
Mhm.
can't get anything.
Mhm.
Or they think that it's used, to help maintain that wealth gap. But how do we bust some of those myths to say that there are opportunities and help them to understand the need for, or incentivize that long-term planning?
Mhm.
Because this isn't a sprint.
Right.
And I think sometimes they're approaching it as a sprint and not understanding the long game.
That's right. The long game.
Educating
That's
people.
right. Educating people, and it takes time, and it's a journey.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
happen overnight. So, you come up with a plan. If you go to a housing counseling agency, they'll put a plan together, an action plan for you. They may share with you that if you save X amount of dollars, maybe $500, and then put it in the bank, you can get a secured credit card.
That's what I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
That's what I did.
All right.
Yeah.
Or if you put something in your name, that's picked up on the credit report, you got to know what that is,
I
right?
co-sign it, but
Right.
right.
You're right.
Not
Well,
co-sign it for somebody.
one
That's a
thing
different
is
kind
a lot of
story.
young people, and I talked to one of my employees about this, they went and just bought their car, paid all, I don't want no payment. Really, you do.
Yes.
Because that's going to build it up. So
That's
for
right.
me, I was always fast. I had no problem with saving. I'm like, save this, save me up a couple thousand, but buy it just flat out because I don't want it, right?
It's
And then
credit.
when I went, to your point, I went to get a car and they're like, so you have no credit. I'm
That's
like,
right.
I got a 2010 Cadillac CTS out there. I paid cash for that. He said, sir,
So
that's where you went wrong.
That's
I'm
right.
like, huh?
that's right.
So now what did I do? I have my vehicle who now it's financed. And guess what it did to my credit score?
Check it out.
That's right. That's
Payments on time,
Yes.
but guess what? Other than my mom telling me, it was never taught to me in school on how serious it is.
Yeah.
So when people are educated,
That's right.
I don't think that nobody doesn't want to have good credit.
That's
I
right.
don't think that nobody wants to not own their vehicle, not own their home,
Mhm.
but guess what? They're not educated.
That's
And
right.
even when we go inside these prisons, I had a few people ask me, do y'all help, with educating us about our credit score? Because guess what? They do know. For the ones who want to know, is that it's serious.
That's right.
And that they're going to need that to make it somewhere.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome,
right.
awesome.
People don't realize that you can get on a home with a 620 credit score.
Right.
You probably should wait a little longer,
Right.
but you can.
Right.
You know,
But what should you do while you're waiting longer?
Save.
Save
Save.
on-time
That's
payments.
right. Come
you
up
know,
with a strategy
Right.
to get a blueprint or,
Right.
or something
Because I
on paper.
guaranteed you, when you're telling a person like, look, if you can get to this,
That's
right?
right.
Your possibility, your opportunity of having, a better advantage of getting something, right? How many people won't sit there and save?
Mhm.
How many people are like, you know what? It ain't
Mhm.
worth going out, every week and come and save this part.
That's right.
You feel me?
That's
Like,
right.
it's not that I think I know that people just need to be educated better about it.
And the service is free. You
Right.
don't have to pay somebody to
Well, that's
help
the thing.
you
How many
if you
people
want
think,
it.
how many people think, to what Adrian said earlier, scams. You have so many
Yes.
things out there that are scams to where they're like,
skeptical.
you put in for something and what does it do? It takes a hard hit on your credit.
Right.
So like, oh,
Right.
don't do that.
Right.
But again, well, now we have these resources and we're able to say, look, this is free. How do you know it's free? Because I know them, right?
When you go to a housing counseling agency, they do a soft pull, which means it's not going to affect your credit score.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It's important.
And they
Important
can
stuff.
pull it maybe 3 times a year
Right.
for,
To see if it's
see
growing.
if it's growing and it's not going to affect.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
People need to understand those things.
Right.
I think this is, a very important form, a very important, topic. This is why when we were doing our conversations throughout the community last year, this came up as one of those things where people were saying this is an area of focus
Mhm.
because it impacts so many other areas. And we want to talk about, housing and things like that. But all of those things, it's impacted by this. So if your financial house isn't in order,
Right.
a lot of other things really become out of reach or become problematic.
Right.
So we want to make sure those things don't happen. And one of our Northeast neighborhoods actually host an annual block party in June, and they want to actually have you all come out and talk more, about 300 people at the event, but come and talk more about this issue because it is critical. And until we're able to truly help folks understand the importance of being stable financially, we want them to understand that there is a path forward. And we're here to provide those resources. So again, grateful for Mr. Simpson and Ms. Redmond for being a part of our conversation. Definitely been inspiring. It's been exciting. I love the conversation, and we're going to continue this. This is something that, as I just said, we have to make sure folks get it. This is what's going to change the tide. You got to have your finances in order. So thank you so very much for attending, and looking forward to partnerships.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So there we go. Thank you all.
All right.